Hello, BookTube. I have a pile of periodicals that I have to go through and tear apart, and because I'm a vlogger, my natural first response was, well, surely I should take you all along with me. And I thought, well, it's going to be incredibly tedious. And my rejoinder to that was, well, you knew that when you married me. So, and then I thought, well, okay, but the place where you like to do your going through periodicals and tearing them apart won't work for the camera. The camera placement won't work. But there is nothing that my $4 tripod cannot do. So here we are. I thought we'd go through that. I'll show you what I mean. I've often talked about going through literary journals and picking out the stuff I want. And I've never actually shown you how I do it. It used to be, for years and years, I had what you younger kids are going to have to Google this, but I had a filing cabinet. In fact, at one point I had two tall filing cabinets full of disjecta membra, of miscellaneous clippings that I just made and kept, but never consulted. I never consulted them. I never looked back into those files. They just grew and grew and grew. And if you are not consulting something, whether it's a file, an old manuscript, an old journal, books, you should get rid of it. Not to sign on to Marie Kondo, but if it's just junk, if you have it and don't ever use it in any way, then it's junk. It's just taking up space. And it's devaluing in your mind, mentally, a little bit, even though you might not realize it. It's devaluing what you keep and value. But that's the meta. The fine scale detail here is that eventually I realized that all of that stuff in those filing cabinets could go. So I over the course of an enormously long and wonderful weekend, I went through everything. And I got rid of everything that I wasn't using. I realized that the only book reviews, for instance, if we concentrate on book reviews and book essays, the only book reviews that I ever consulted were the ones that were tucked in the books in question. Whether they were my reviews or somebody else's. I never consulted anything else. That is the proper location for a book review, is folded and tucked neatly inside the book it's reviewing, or a book on that same subject. And once I made that decision and went through my filing cabinets thinking, okay, if it's not something that you can keep elsewhere, then you don't keep it at all. Because you're going to throw away these filing cabinets. You're not just going to empty them and fill them again. You're going to empty them, and then they're going to go into scrap metal. They're going to go into the refuge dump. And once I did that, I went through them like the fire of the Lord. It was amazing. And now I do that regularly. I don't keep any general clippings at all. The only exception that I make for that is that, of course, I keep a journal, as you should too. Everybody in the world should keep a journal. And I have fallen into the habit of keeping a fairly big journal, a physically big volume. For a long time, for the last few years, I haven't kept a volume at all. I've kept a document box with loose paper. And I would write out a page and put it in there, and then I would put other stuff in there. But I noticed that even so small a temptation as a document box led me to start keeping stuff I don't need to keep. That it is still junk, even though it's in a small area. So now I've gone back to the thing that has sustained me for decades and decades and decades, and that is a bound volume. In my case, a slightly larger, slightly oversized blank sketchbook. And that is perfect for tucking things in. And I will do that occasionally, very occasionally. I don't want that volume being, fat and wrapped together with string at the end of the year. No, by far the place where most of the stuff that I pull out of literary journals goes now is into books. So that's what we're going to do now. We're gonna look at those. Not that you're paying any attention to me. We all know that. You're not. I'm perfectly aware of that. You're paying attention to my being. It is not sunny this afternoon. And if it is windy, if it is chilly, if it is rainy, if it is snowy, if it is cloudy, then this is what happens to my little dynamo of a miniature schnauzer. she's on the go and perfectly happy if it's beautiful, fine weather. But if it's anything else, this is what happens to her. But maybe when you replay the video, you'll pay attention to me. So I wanted to show you how I do this. And literary periodicals, I get a bunch of them, and I go through them. and the thing I like to do, so as not to be wrestling with staples, because if you're pulling things out, for instance, this is the latest TLS. This is the January 24th TLS. And what I like to do is flip the thing over, take a handy pair of scissors, and cut up the spine of the journal in a straight line, right inside the staples. You're left with this, but you're also not going to be wrestling anymore, right? Because the key here to keep things nice and neat is to make two piles. One very small pile of the stuff that you are keeping, and another very large pile of the stuff that you are discarding. So this allows me to just page through the TLS page by page without wrestling with anything. Because the margins are already trimmed. Now, the first thing in here is a long article on Frank Lloyd Wright, and I have no interest in Frank Lloyd Wright at all. I just don't. But the second one is a long thing by Keith Miller on. The second one is still modernist furniture and whatnot. And then there's the letters page. But the letters page is only of interest to me if I or somebody else I know has a letter printed. Otherwise, don't keep it. And even then, if I have a letter printed, or if somebody I know has a letter printed about a specific book, I will cut out just that letter and stick it in the specific book. But then the next thing here is a long essay by Nicholas Waxman on Auschwitz. And that is worth keeping, even though, as far as I can tell, it's not about an individual book. It's just a general reminiscence. Now, the key thing, I'll keep that, fold it neatly at the edges, like that, and then fold it like that so you can tuck it inside a book. And the key with the spine cutting, we'll see it a few more times in this incredibly tedious video, is you've got to be inside the staples so that the scissors not hitting the staples, but you can't be too far inside or you'll cut out part of the article. So it has to be nice and neat, right? But then let's see. Then the next one is rock and roll. Actually, there's quite a bit on rock and roll, so we don't want that. And then the next one, the freelance piece this time around, is by Mark Bostridge, and it's about diaries. It starts off with the Kilvert diary, but it's actually about diaries and journal keeping. And it isn't about a specific book. Neither one of these are. But this, I have books on the Holocaust and on concentration camps. This will go in there because it was that good, and I want to keep it. And I also have Thomas Mallon's book on keeping diaries, a book of one's own, which is terrific and which is now full of clippings like this, of miscellaneous clippings about keeping a diary. So then we'll move on here. Video reviews, TV reviews, almost never saved. Fiction reviews, almost never saved. Then we have Mark Chamberlain writing about Robert Lowell and Elizabeth Hardwick. There's the happy couple. And that I will keep because I have the 2-volume FSG reprint of one, an edition of the Dolphin, and another, the edition of the Dolphin Letters. And then there's a piece on a book called The Private Life of Lord Byron, and it's by Emily Jackson. And you would think, well, of course you're going to save that. But the review is a pan. The book is bad. And I know this reviewer, and I wouldn't need to know her anyway because the points she raises are damning. So I'm not going to bother to keep it because I'm never going to have the book. I'm not that much of a Byron completist that I will go out and get a bad book. And of course, I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I didn't take book reviews seriously, right? So I can't actually be affected that way. If a book review is a magisterial condemnation of a book that is not done on personal grounds, where I don't get the sense that the reviewer is just railing. If the reviewer instead went into the book neutral and said, this is just bad, then I'm going to avoid the book. It might come to me later on, but it won't be anything that I'll go and get right away. Then we have Mary Kay Wilmer's Human Relations and Other Difficulties. This is a whole-page review of her book of literary essays. That's a definite keeper. That goes right in the book. I have that book in my bookcase of books about books. The review of the new Julian Barnes, it didn't interest me. A review of Motherwell, that also did not interest me. Some general nonfiction. Then the TLS has these in brief reviews, just 100 words each, not of any interest. So get rid of those as well. And then we have an invitation for next week's TLS, which is about science fiction. Very, very nice. And the last thing, the JC's NB column at the back of the TLS, wonderfully saucy. And ordinarily I wouldn't keep it. But it begins, it's broken into little segments, it's just discussions of stuff. And the long first discussion is about Inside the Critics Circle, book reviewing, that book that we saw just recently about book reviewing. So I'll want to keep that, but I actually don't need the rest of JC's column. So I will cut straight up the middle to where that ends. And see, so now I just have the first part of these 3 columns. These 2 and change column is about that book, but I don't need that ad either. so as long as I've got the scissors here, I will just cut that ad off. So now I can fold this thing lengthwise and just tuck it in the Critics Circle book. And that is an issue of the TLS. Neat as could be. I can't see where I am, what we're doing for time, but we're going to keep going. Then the next periodical is the Vineyard Gazette, the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, which is a big, broad newspaper that serves the island of Martha's Vineyard. And I love it, absolutely love it. I have read this issue, but I'm trying to remember if I'm in it. That is, generally speaking, the only thing that I will pull and keep from an issue of the Vineyard Gazette is a review of mine. This is about the winter bird count. It has some great pieces in it, and of course, like everybody else who gets the Vineyard Gazette, I turn immediately to the back. The back page above the fold is all outdoors, bird watching, and the Great Vineyard Gardener column, and I go straight to the back of those, and I never miss it. I never miss those. Yeah, there have been many Vineyard Gazette issues. I'm sure I'm not the only person. There have been many Vineyard Gazette issues where that's all that I read. I should read everything, but there are some that I don't. Then we'll go on to the London Review of Books. What have we got here? A long political piece on the American assassination of Soleimani. Letters, but a letters page free of me. Another long piece on the assassination of Soleimani. But then we have Thomas Penn writing a long review of the new book about the Emperor Charles V. So I have that, and I thought the book was impressive. So we will cut the spine here. That causes fear in the heart of my little bean because she hates being clipped. She hates having her fur clipped. I do it very gently and only very rarely, but I do it with those scissors. So she notices when I have them out and about. So we're gonna take this Charles V review and fold it up because it will go in the book. Then we have, let's see here, a roundup of books that I do not know. Another roundup of books that I do not know. Another piece about Soleimani, so that's not important. Okay, another book, more books that I do not know. But here we have a Malcolm Gaskill does a long piece in this London Review of Books on the Matthew Shardlake novels. Technically about Tombland, the latest one, but it ends up being a long, wonderful rumination on the whole series. Exactly the kind of piece that I've wanted the Shardlake novels to get. So that will go in either Tombland or in one of the UK trade paperbacks that I have of earlier books. I actually want Tombland in a UK trade paperback as well. I don't know why I'm bothering to wait. I know that I want it that way. Let's see here. And then all the rest of this issue is on stuff that I'm not keeping, that I don't have. So we're done with it. Then we move on to the New York Review of Books. So we're getting a major hits tour of the journals that I mostly subscribe to. If you follow Peg at the History Shelf, then you will just have seen she just got her latest issue of Book Forum. I have lamentably let my subscription to Book Forum lapse. I really need to fix that because it's really good. But so I don't get that. That's not going to be part of this pile. The New York Review of Books, we can cut out the. Okay, the first piece is on Ronan Farrow's book, Catch and Kill, which I was impressed. I was impressed by the book, but I didn't keep it. So I don't need the piece, and the piece is very long. And then the next one is on a French artist that has no interest in me whatsoever. Another is a long piece on the Democratic debates. Again, no interest whatsoever. A long and very good review of Ben Lerner's book, The Topeka School, but I read the book, but I didn't keep it. So I don't need the review. Whereas once upon a time, in the old series the old system that I was talking about, the fact that I read and liked the book would have made me keep the review, even though I don't have the book anymore. Insane. Absolutely insane. A book about post-traumatic stress disorder that I don't have. And then a piece by Dan Chison on called The Long Public Life of a Short Private Poem, which is about... that can be. It's about one particular poem of Thomas Wyatt, the poet Thomas Wyatt. And I do not have the book. It only came out in the UK. And considering its subject matter, I doubt it will come out in the United States. But this will go in a biography of Thomas Wyatt, because the piece was really good. Something on economics. Let's see here. Then we have a roundup of the Crusades, of books on the Crusades. And that I will keep because one of the books, The World of the Crusades, I actually have. So this will go in that book. And the neat thing about this system is that it doesn't require prescience. It doesn't require anything like that. You're not on the hook, because if another piece on Soleimani. Okay, and then that does the New York Review of Books. If I predict wrong, if I clip something and I put it in a book, and then a year later, a month later, or however, I decide I don't actually want the book, that I don't go back to the book enough, then somebody else gets the pleasure of finding a book review tucked into that book, because I will donate it or I will sell it. So it works either way. Then we move on to the TLS again. This is an earlier issue of the TLS. Again, sight unseen, whether you know that you want something in the issue or not, just cut right up the spine. Right up the spine, so that the pages are free. So you don't have to worry about wrestling with staples. That is very annoying. Okay. All right. The first long article in this particular issue is on the new Gallimard box set of Michelet's The French Revolution, which I really, really want. I really want it. This will work. This will work. I don't have Michelet even in English now. I don't think an unabridged Michelet exists in English, and at least currently in print. His book on the French Revolution is magnificent. Oh goodness, what's that all about, baby bean? I have other books on the French Revolution, and I can stick this in one of those, but I still have a forlorn dream of getting that Gallimard 2-volume set. So I'm not keeping, I want to stress, I'm not keeping the book review because I someday hope to get the book. That would be bad. Instead, I'm keeping it because I have the review was quite good, very, very good. I have places where I can put it. Okay, here we have a conflict. Here we have a struggle. Here's when this method falls apart, but it would anyway. And that is, the first thing we have is by Ann Kennedy Smith, and it is a roundup review of a few books. Square Hunting by Francesca Wade, Lost Girls by D.J. Taylor, and The Mutual Admiration Society by Mo Moulton. I've read 2 out of the 3 of those and really like them both, and the review is really long and really good, but unfortunately, the last page of the review of that book fronts on the first page of a long piece by Emma Butcher celebrating Anne Bronte. So I have to decide which of those 2 things I want to keep. I can't keep them both, obviously, because they're going to go in separate places. And I'm going to decide on the Emma Butcher piece. It's better than the roundup review, and I will put it in Juliet Barker's group biography of the Brontes. I don't have any individual Bronte sister biographies. That's a little much. But I have the great book, The Brontes, that I'll just put this in there. It's got a bunch of other reviews in it, and I will just have to forego the review of the Mutual Admiration Society. Unfortunately, sometimes that happens. Let's see here. A review of Marriage Story on Netflix. Did any of you see Marriage Story on Netflix? I did. Uh, and I thought it was really funny that one of the here we have all sorts of fiction. So I thought it was really funny that one of the little Twitter made controversies about Marriage Story was that it was revealed that the actors were all speaking their lines. That every detail of the scene had been sculpted by the director. None of it was improvised. And because Twitter is a place where people just want to be outraged because they're addicted to outrage, people were trying to be outraged by that. They're trying to be outraged by the fact that the actors were following the script. I didn't know what to make of that. I thought it was funny. Then we're getting. I'm not ignoring you. We're going through lots of biographies, lots of nonfiction that I don't have, and that I don't plan to keep. Okay, and then that does it. That ends this TLS and this. Then we have New York Magazine, and although I found the photo essay about white supremacy in America really interesting, I will not keep it. I will not keep anything in here unless it's literary, and if it's literary, I will only keep it if it's connected to something that I am keeping. And I don't off the top of my head remember what the literary stuff was in here, but it's not hard to find because it's in the back of the book. It's never. You don't put the. Oh, that's right. Infamously, this had the best books of the year list in which all of the books were bad. Yeah, so we don't need to look at that. Don't need to look at that. All right, so we're on to another issue of the TLS. Let's see what this one has. I wonder what that was at the door. Can't have been the mail. But it can't have been some sort of canvasser either, right? On a Sunday? No way. I guess I'll find out. I'm in no hurry. The Bean and I are perfectly relaxed. Okay, the first piece in this one is about quantum physics, but I remember it being not particularly good. There is a pop-up ad for the last Maigret novel, Maigret and Monsieur Charles, in this Penguin series of reprints. I don't have it yet. Haven't been sent it yet. Then they have their own review of Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. So, and they also have an in-house ad taunting me because Genius and Ink, Virginia Woolf on How to Read, is a collection of Virginia Woolf's critical essays for the TLS. I do not have it. I do not have it. There's a review of The Life and Loves of E.F. Nesbit by Eleanor Fitzsimmons, which was a biography of the author of Five Children and an It that I really liked, but I didn't keep it. So, okay, then some German language productions that I don't have. A scathing piece on John Middleton Murray. He very much deserves it, but I don't have anything on him or by him. A British political piece that won't, I won't have anything for it. I won't have anything that interests me. A piece on textiles. A piece on a TV review that I don't have. Aha, there we go. Okay. Alison Kelly does a long and very good review of Where the Light Falls, by the short stories by Nancy Hale from the Library of America, which I have, and which got depressingly little in the way of critical attention. So I will put that right in that volume. It's right up on the mantelpiece. Scandinavian fiction. Okay, and then there's a rereading piece on Spring Torrents by Turgenev, and I will keep that and tuck it into the new edition that's coming out of A Hunter's Notebook. Because the piece itself was really good, and there's no reason to get rid of pieces that are really good. It's just there's no point in putting them in filing cabinets. I want them to be where I will find them and where I can use them, where I know I will consult them. I've got a bunch of fiction. I very seldom need to save pieces for fiction because I very seldom save fiction. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's the TLS's review of the same biography of the Emperor Charles V. So that's two pieces that I will put in that big fat hardcover. Great, fantastic. Okay, and then lastly we have this is a 1/2 page review of that book Florence Under Siege, about Florence and the Plague. Pretty much exactly the sort of thing that I myself would like to review for the TLS. So I don't need the second half of that page. I just need the top half. I just need that review. And there you go. That is another TLS done. Then we have another Vineyard Gazette. And this one does not. I remember this one very well. I went straight to the back to the Vineyard Gardener and All About Birds. But it doesn't have anything by me. Doesn't have anything that I would want to save. Then the new National Geographic, and this is the cover illustration is The Last Journey into Slavery, and the issue was tremendously good, as National Geographic tends to be. But nothing in it that I want to keep. No general interest stuff that I want to keep. Then Architectural Digest. Which I love. This I would never. I largely do it for whatever the German opposite is of Schadenfreude, because I don't. I look at these things, and clearly the object of these photo spreads of these opulent homes is to spark a certain amount of envy, and they always have the exact opposite in me. I never see a place that actually looks livable. Look at that. It's not just the addition of this particular horrible, but look at that. Would you want to live in a place like that? It looks ridiculous, and most of them do. I mean, this, yeah, there you go. That's your dining room. Feel nice and comfortable. And I'm trying to remember if there was one. Sometimes I will save individual pages from here just to put in my journal. But I don't think this issue had even one place that looked even remotely interesting. It was all just these weird kabuki homes that you're not supposed to enjoy. They're meant to be show places. So that's a no. And then we have The Atlantic, What It Means to Be a Man by Peggy Orenstein, who did a book called Boys and Sex that was quite good. The reviews tend to be in the middle of The Atlantic, so we'll take a look and see what we have there. There's a very interesting article in this issue on an intensely religious town, a town built around religion in the United States. I know some of you non-Americans will say, aren't they all? There's also an article in here about Joe Biden's stutter. The fact that Joe Biden has a stutter, and that sometimes explains his weird speech cadences. Interesting stuff, but not to keep. Not to keep at all. No, I think this had... oh, no, okay, yes, this did. One of the reviews in here was on the new book, Citizen Reporters, which is partly about Ida Tarbell, and that is not out yet. I don't know why the Atlantic's doing a review so early, but I don't think it's out yet anyway. I think it's a February release. We'll just trim the edges here. I will want to put this in with that book. I'll put it in the advanced copy that I have now, but I ideally want it to go in the finished copy. I don't know how much press that's going to get, but that's the first that I saw. But nothing else in this issue of Atlantic. Then another issue of the Vineyard Gazette, but again, nothing of interest in this one. So I don't know why I was actually holding on to it this long. Then an issue of GQ with Larry David on the cover, and if I remember correctly, this had no literary matter at all. This had nothing that I would want to keep. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have anything that I want to keep. Okay, and then the last thing. We're at 30 minutes, so you survived. The last thing is the Journal of the American Veterinary Association, which is very, very fascinating reading, but it's not going to have anything that I want to keep. So take the scissors, put them back where they belong. Don't ever leave scissors roaming around wild. And there you go. See? Out of that huge pile of periodicals, I made this. And now I will have the extra fun of darting around the place, tucking these in where they belong. Every one of these has a home, so that I'm not letting. First of all, I'm not letting magazines and newspapers just pile up in moldering mounds, and I also don't have a pile of these clippings that are just going to go in a box somewhere. No, instead they're going where I know I can find them. No finger thumbing through huge filing cabinet drawers. Nothing like that. So I have often described this process. Now you have seen it with your own bored, stiff eyes. So I'm going to wrap this up and go find out, if I can, what that was at the front door. I guess it could be an Amazon delivery, couldn't it? Amazon delivers on Sunday, so it could be an Amazon delivery. Maybe I ordered another computer and don't even remember it. But one way or another, I'm going to go. Clearly the Bean also wants to take a stroll. So I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.